Hello student, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This is my recorded lecture that is aimed at helping you to be connected to the idea of research. The topic for this lecture is Introduction to Research, a glimpse of quantitative versus qualitative research. While I'm giving you speech or explanation related to this topic, you must have the access to my course material, the PowerPoint on Google Classroom. So please access the PowerPoint and you can write your own notes or remarks on every interesting thing or something that you think relevant for you to ask further from me. Okay, so research is an academic activity, and as such the term should be used in technical sense. So if you want to understand research, is you should understand that it's an activity of academic. Yeah. It should be understood as technical sense in academic. Yeah. So research comprises defining and redefining problems, formulating hypotheses or suggested solutions, collecting, organizing, and evaluating data, deductions, and reaching conclusion, and at last, carefully testing the conclusion to determine whether they fit the formulating hypothesis. If you have a question about what do you mean by an academic activity, so it deals with academic uh, purposes, it deals with academic goals, and it deals with academic values and norms. Yeah? And research is highly related to some purposes or objective. For example, redefining problems, defining and redefining problems. It means that every research in this definition, it is designed to solve problems by formulating hypotheses. Hypothesis is your prior answer to the research question. Yeah. Or what is question? Question is the way you express the solution to the problems you mentioned earlier. I will give you an example here. For example, I have problem or I observe a problem where students in senior high school have problems in memorizing words, for example. They have problem to remember word and its meanings. So that is the problem that drives this research. So when we consider this as a problem, then we try to find solution. And after reading some journals, some articles from journals, literature, you might come with an idea based on your readings that this problem might be solved by replicating or by using particular strategy, method, or material or anything related to the problem. For example, I will use vocabulary cards, try to solve the memory problem in the students, and then we have hypothesis suggesting that this vocabulary card will solve the problem of memory, yeah, in our students. And then we try to design the course. Yeah. After that, we try to apply the steps that you have designed. Yeah. And then you take data from the class by testing them before and after. This is for research. And then you try to organize and evaluate the data. And then you try to make a deduction. A deduction means you try to grab the most important point from the data that help you to understand the phenomena. After that, you come with conclusion. And then after that, you try to test the conclusion. to determine whether your hypothesis is right or not. Yeah. So this kind of research is commonly known as experiment. Yeah. Okay, so why do we need to conduct a research? First, you conduct a research to gain familiarity with the phenomenon or to achieve new insights into it. So this point means you try to understand something happens somewhere out there or anywhere, yeah. But when you see it, you don't have enough prior knowledge or you don't have knowledge about the phenomenon. That's why you conduct a research to understand the phenomenon. So you conduct a research also to study things. Yeah. Why the students often forget words, why the students very hard to grab meanings from a sentence, for example, and maybe other phenomena out there. The second objective is to portray accurately the characteristics of particular individual, situation, or a group. It means that when you go to a school and you need to understand them by giving them categories or classification, it means you conduct a research. For example, I can classify students based on their achievement in vocabulary tests or based on their ability to match word and meaning. Or I can classify students who have difficulties in the meaning of word, but some other have difficulties in understanding the meaning of a sentence. So the two students have different cases to solve. Yeah. This is why we conduct a research, so we can classify, we can categorize, define accurately the characteristic of particular person, situation, or a group within the phenomenon. And then the other objective is to determine the frequency with which something occurs or with which it is associated with something else. It means that when this happens, what happened in other side? Or when I give this, what happened to him or to her or to them? Yeah? So by conducting this kind of research, you can justify that by doing these steps, the students begin to memorize the words and its meaning, for example. It means that how many times and with what condition that allows students to come with that achievement in their learning. So this kind of research can do like plan or design to solve the problems and try to associate the step of 1, 2, 3 to something what we call as learning achievement in the student. Okay, so why people have motivation in research? The first one, like all of you want to conduct a research because you need to comply with the qualification of your degree. Yeah. If you want to be sarjana pendidikan, it is required for you to complete research and present your reports, what we call as thesis, mini thesis. And we have decided to face the challenge in solving to unsolved problems. A concern over practical problems initiates research. Yeah? Problems initiate research. And then we have decided to get intellectual joy of doing something creative, some creative work. Some people maybe only have, they like to do research because they enjoy it and then they do it. They conduct a research. Decided to be a service to society. It means that by conducting a research, you try to help people to solve their problem. Decide to get respectability. It means that you want to be honored person. by showing your knowledge and your comprehension to phenomenon or phenomena in society, and that people will respect you because your ability, your competence in explaining or understanding phenomenon. There are many types of research. This will be your first activity after this course. You have to find, yeah, you have to be able to define the contrast of 5 categories in types of research. The first one, what is the difference between descriptive and analytical research? The second one, what is the difference between applied and fundamental research? The third one, what is the difference between quantitative versus qualitative? The fourth one, what is the difference between conceptual versus empirical? Okay, and the last one, you have to be able to mention and explain other types of research. Okay, significance of research. It means that to those students who are to write a master degree, master's thesis or PhD, research may mean a career, yeah, or a way to attain a high position. Okay, to professional in research methodology, research may mean a source of livelihood. Yeah. For philosopher and thinker, research may mean the outlet for new ideas and insight. It means the way you explore ideas. Yeah. To literary men and women, research may mean the development of new styles and creative work. And the last one, the analysts and intellectuals, research may mean the generalization of new theories. And that research and scientific method are two related terms. Okay? Research and scientific method. Scientific method is the pursuit of truth as determined by logic consideration. It means you try to find the fact, the truth, by following some logical norms, yeah, or steps or consideration. Who create the logic consideration? People before us, the intellectuals, they try to develop the logical consideration of conducting scientific method. For example, they can do it by experimentation, like trying to give intervention to one variable and try to observe the effect of the experiment, the intervention to the other variable. Observation means you try to have a very close view about things. Logical arguments, you try to make arguments which is logic. It means logic means you have a strong argument that has strong foundation. It makes sense. It means it makes sense. Yeah. And the combination of these three in varying proportion. The scientific method encourages a rigorous impersonal mode of procedure dictated by demands of logic and objective procedure. Accordingly, scientific method implies an objective, logical, and systematic method. So it means here, when you use scientific method to study things, yeah, you have to demonstrate discipline to what we call as procedure, standard procedure. The procedure, the standard one, was managed or created by experts based on logic and objective procedure. So, if you conduct a scientific method, it means you follow the paths given by the previous expert or earlier expert. They put logic and objective procedure in that procedure. Yeah. And scientific method implies an objective. It means what do you want to achieve? Yeah. Logical and systematic method means it makes sense and it has a system that organizes the steps. Yeah. So it means we have to be very careful to avoid bias or prejudice. Yeah. Bias means you give something or justification that considered without any foundation. You make it based on your own thoughts. Yeah. It means you don't have any scientific clues or knowledge or strong reference that support your idea. It can be very biased, yeah, in this. If you talk about scientific things and you just believe what you said without referring other experts or previous study. And prejudice means you try to judge something before knowing or before studying data or any relevant evidence to support your judgment. So free from that, okay? And ascertain demonstrable qualities of phenomenon capable of being verified. It means that if you take scientific method, it has to be demonstrate the the high qualities of phenomenon. It means that what you are studying is worth it to be studied. And then the researcher is guided by the rules of logical reasoning. It means that the way people think. Yeah. Logic always begins with truth. For example, you know the fact that sun rises in the east, and you cannot reject that fact. Yeah? It's very logical. When you want to be logic, you always support and use the truth which has been agreed or identified. How to identify? You try to find literature reference that support the logic. Yeah. So logic is compilation of truth. Yeah? When you conduct a research, you should come with logical reasoning that try to prove the truth of your study. Yeah? A method wherein the investigation proceed in orderly manner. It means that you have to very clear about stages, steps, yeah, in conducting your research. Yeah? So you have to put in the right order. For example, have you decided the number of samples, yeah, before you distribute the instrument? Because if you don't do those steps in the right order, it might cause unacceptable result of the research. Yeah. And then implies internal consistency. It means consistent means you have to be very consistent about your research. Yeah. Okay. Next, about research methods and versus methodology. Methods are those techniques, steps, stages, or anything taken or used to conduct a research. Yeah. Research methods generate techniques in which they are interchangeable in practice. Techniques and methods are something very close in meanings. Methodology is a way to systematically solve the research problem. I understand methodology is science of studying how research is done. Yeah? So methodology, what we are doing now is we are studying methodology. Yeah? But when you conduct a real research, it means you have to choose methods or technique. Research methodology has many dimensions, and research methods do constitute a part of research methodology. Yes, of course. In research methodology, you're studying about methods. Yeah. The research of methodology is wider than the research methods. You have to remember this, okay? And then, process. You can read the step from the first step to 11th. But this is not the only process. Eh? You can start from different. It depends on what kind of inquiry, what kind of phenomenon, and It depends on what do you want to do, what do you want to know, what are you trying to measure, what are you trying to reveal. It depends a lot of your motivation, your purposes, your goals. So it's not the only uh, model of processing a research. Yeah? You can start from problem maybe, but in different case, you may have no problem at all. You can start with idea, phenomenon, need, or you can start with request from other people. So it's not only about problem. And then what you need to do when you start a research, you need to start being a good reader. You have to survey the literature. You have to study the literature. What is relevant to my interest? What theories? Which article? Who is the expert? And so on. In experiment or quantitative, it is common to have hypothesis. But in qualitative or other or similar research like qualitative, they don't really mention the hypothesis. We call it as working hypothesis. Only an experiment you have to mention hypothesis because you try to test the hypothesis, to examine the hypothesis. And then you have to prepare the research design, population, what about sample, instrument to collect the data, and then the implementation of the design. And after you having, if you after having the data, you have to analyze the data, and then by doing data analysis, you can answer the hypothesis, or you can find what you are trying to search. And then in quantitative, you try to generalize by interpreting the data and the findings, and then you have to present or disseminate the finding to other people who have interest. On the other hand, quantitative research is based on measurement of quantity or amount. It is applicable to phenomena that can be expressed in terms of quantity. The easiest way to understand quantitative is you are dealing with generalization, numbers, scaling up, or some people use the word the wide coverage of phenomenon. Meanwhile, qualitative involve to quality. For example, we are interested in why our students are often sleepy at home, and then you try to interview him, and then you reveal that your students should do their homework in the middle of the night. So by conducting the interview, you reveal the cause of that phenomenon. Or other things like motivation, why people want to be a president, for example. You can interview people one by one, or find other kind of data to understand the phenomenon. The other thing is you can do with qualitative is you can define things. For example, as I told you earlier, when we are facing a case in a classroom where all students have problem in memorizing words, then you try to find the problem. What makes them easy to forget the words and its meaning? Then you try to observe, you try to ask questions to them, and then by the end of your study, you have a conclusion that most of the students have problems with their listening, for example, their ability to understand words mentioned by their teacher. They might hear the teacher, but they cannot identify what word was it. It's very hard for them to understand the word, pronounce by the teacher, so they don't know how to find the meaning because they don't know how to write the word. So it's hard to find the meaning of the word. So it can be refilled based on a research, qualitative research. So it aims at discovering an underlying motive and desire. So criteria of good research. Oh, you can read so many criteria of good research, but at least you can achieve the goals. That is the one condition we call as a good research. But the other thing is you have to be very sure about the quality of data, the quality of instrument, the quality of step. Have you conducted the research properly, logically, and really support or use experts' views or theories to support your ideas? Or is it relevant or is it important for other people, the result of your study, whether they will take benefit from your study? Okay, and then remember that whatever you do, especially in conducting a research, discipline and what we call as integrity. As a researcher, you have to show your integrity. It means you have to be be honest, tell the truth. You don't make it up. You don't do research only to complete the step. No, you have to very strict about the integrity in conducting a research. What we call as ethics in research. Yeah. We have to very careful in applying this quality of person who conduct a research. And then quality of good research is systematic, yeah, logic, empirical, replicable. I think this is not all about. Uh, this is not the only thing that you can read or or listen to about. Uh, Try to contrasting uh, different type of research. Yeah. So once again, I'm asking you to read further what mentioned in slide 9. Yeah, you have to do what I asked you. The first one, you have to able to explain the the, the difference between descriptive versus analytical, applied versus fundamental, and so on. Okay, I think that's all. We have a very brief lecture this this occasion, but I give you time to reread the materials and try to explore further from different resources. Yeah. Feel free to find from internet or other resources. And after this course, just follow the instruction on the Google Classroom. What should you do with the explanation about the difference between types of research? I think that's all. Yeah. Thank you very much for your attention. I wish to meet you soon and then we can discuss any relevant topics.